Welcome to BW Healthcare World, Dr. Arjun and Dr. Aakaar. Thank you so much for joining us today. Both of you are running labs, one in pathology side and the other one pathology and imaging. But both of you seem to be focused on quality, and that's what I've been hearing from both of you in the past. So, my first question is, you both are running hyperlocal labs, you know, and while there are these newer companies that have emerged as hub and spoke models, aggregating the customers online, has this been a conscious approach? Are you purposely not looking at moving in that direction? Whoever wants to go first, Dr. Arjun, would you want to take on?
Absolutely, absolutely. Firstly, Harbinder, super privileged and an absolute pleasure to be here, and I've been looking forward to our interactions and absolute pleasure having Aakaar with me. And yes, so Harbinder, I would certainly agree with you on the fact that the landscape of the entire diagnostic industry has nothing but metamorphosized, especially in the past 3 to 5 years. And when I actually look back a decade perhaps, and that time I saw that my parents had started from a small brick and mortar kind of a 200 square feet area and then moved to a bigger place. And in all of Delhi, there were probably just 5 or 6 labs. Today, on the road which we are situated on in South Delhi only, has 28 places where you can get a CBC test done. The CBC test also varies from 45 rupees till 500 rupees. So there are abundant options. And obviously, these smaller labs and even bigger chains that have grown have all happened in the past few years only. Now what has happened is that the entire industry, I hate to say this, but till a certain extent, has been commoditized. Now, obviously, when you look at the entire healthcare spend of any individual, what is important to understand is that diagnostics actually forms 5 to 8% of the total spend. That means their medication, their hospitalization, their surgery, their follow-up, everything, if that is 100 rupees, this is just about 5 to 8 rupees. So even today, the patient understands, and especially after the pandemic, that if they get this first step of diagnosis wrong, their their downside or the effect of this wrong diagnosis can be very, very detrimental. So now building that kind of a model where you practice with a lot of personalized care. Now, what do I mean by personalized care? This is something that has been discussed a lot. But personalized care means that if a phlebotomist goes to someone's house, now since the magic word is home collection, if someone phlebotomist is at someone's house and that old lady just wants to understand that, okay, my doctor's written this very specialized test, but my doctor didn't really give me that much time. Anyone in your lab can explain to me why this test is 4,000 rupees and why does it take a week to be reported. So you have a doctor available. And even if the doctor is a pathologist, so we have a client operations team that works with me where we have multiple doctors and we try to revert back to a query that a phlebotomist has in someone's house within 15 to 20 minutes or as soon as possible. So it gives us a chance to connect with the patient at point one. Also, since we are a very pediatric sensitized lab, about 1 out of 3 of the patients that come in are kids or children or babies or toddlers. And all of us being right here doing the phlebotomy ourselves, interacting with the patient gives us a chance to actually have that connect and actually connect with them with a lot of empathy that gives us an edge over the bigger hub and spoke and the bigger sharks. Now, also something that's very important to understand is that out of the entire diagnostic industry, wellness forms about 10 to 12%. It is obviously growing at a higher CAGR, but ultimately, even if it's 20%, still a majority of the tests are those that are prescribed by a doctor. Now, the tests that are for illness or prescribed by a doctor, the sample integrity, especially in a city like Delhi or in a country like India in the months of May, June, July, etc., which are scorching hot, is very important. And when the patient is spending that amount of money, especially post the pandemic, where their apprehension is lesser that they can move out, they do want to go into a brick and mortar structure, meet a doctor, have that confidence that the sample is not just going to be lying somewhere on a table for many hours and it's going to be processed immediately. That's why there is a study that shows that places that process the sample, that is the lab, have the maximum walk-ins compared to any other patient service center. So yes, also being hyperlocal, my last point before Aakaar can add, is that being hyperlocal is more city specific, Harbinder. So if this was any other city, it would not make sense for me and Aakaar to actually focus on a particular region of a particular city. Now, if you look at the entire diagnostics industry in India, and if the total revenue of the diagnostics industry that is currently $10 billion or something, if it's suppose we take it as 100 rupees, in India, maximum comes out of Delhi NCR, and that is close to about 20% that will reach in the next 3 to 5 years. The second is Bombay, and so on and so forth. So we have a large part of the pie, or like some MBAs might call it low hanging fruit, for us to capitalize on, because Delhi NCR is huge. It drains so many cities and towns around it. So hopefully we'll be able to do justice to that, because there are a lot of demand for good quality testing here. Aakaar, over to you.
Okay, in fact, before you speak on this, I want your perspective because you're also running imaging center. It's not just pathology, and which is a very capital intensive, operations. And so, how do you, what is that a very conscious choice of going hyper local because you are replicating the same lab in that small geographic area? You know, so
Yeah.
what is your take on this?
So, firstly, thank you for having me in this talk with you and Arjun. It's my utmost privilege. And we are a hyper-local organization, but at the same time, we also use the hub and spoke model to some extent. We have multiple centers across Delhi NCR, which are hyper-local, and we do have the expertise of providing radiology, pathology, cardiology, as well as neurology services all under one roof. So, being hyper local really helps the patients, first of all, they benefit, and they also know the ethos and the intent behind the organization, the people running the organization. They can connect with us in a much better way. And they see faces over and over out throughout the years. So, it helps build confidence for sure. And also in many times, like some tests need to be changed or added as per the prescription, which may benefit the patient in a big way. Like I recall a patient doing last week, I was doing an ultrasound, and the patient had an hepatic abscess because he had a pain in the right hypochondrium. And I just called the clinician up and I asked the doctor that can I do an abscess drainage. So after checking the PT-INRs, I just put in the needle and drained almost about 200 to 250 cc of the pus. So the patients really do benefit, and the disease process can be shortened and the recovery can be much faster. And yeah, apart from that, like the other day, I was doing an ultrasound and a patient had a UPT negative, has had a pregnancy negative, came for an ultrasound, but I did suspect an ectopic pregnancy. I spoke to the clinician and eventually did a beta HCG to confirm the ectopic pregnancy, which is a surgical emergency. So this frequent and fluent communication with the clinician helps the patients in a big way. And at the same time, we do have the hub and spoke model. We have multiple collection points across Delhi in doctors' offices, as well as running multiple hospital lab management systems in which we run the diagnostics, both radiology and pathology in the hospitals. So, yeah, because I feel that running a lab is not only about funding and marketing, it's about, dedication, good team of experts, as well as who should have the intent to serve the society. And there also, since radiology is very capital intensive, so that becomes a roadblock in expanding and forming multiple centers across the state or even beyond. So we do have to expand in a very systematic, thoughtful manner, because both have to go hand in hand, which is our key expertise.
So, Dr. Arjun and Aakaar, this approach of hyperlocal is focused on specific geographic area. And so how do you think this has impacted the domain? Because now you have three different kind of models existing or coexisting. One is the large chains which are pan India chains. These are pretty large in size in terms of operations. Then you have diagnostic centers like yourself, which are not the pan India chains, but you're still not
Regional,
a
regional,
small,
yes.
you're a regional player. And then you also have these standalone mom and pop stores that have opened up. How do you manage it? And what is the impact that you think your centers are creating in the industry?
Sure. So, Arvind, this is something that we very frequently debate in our management review meetings also, that where we are currently and what are we doing to remain relevant in the next 10 or 20 years. Now, one thing that is for given and will happen with all certainty is consolidation in this industry. And obviously, the big are going to get bigger, the medium are going to get bigger, and the smaller are going to either perish or get even smaller. So, even COVID showed that, because when such huge volumes had come in, when any enterprise's own staff, about 50% was under the weather or infected by COVID, I think the only thing that kept going was whoever had invested in IT infra, and also who was more process dependent and not person dependent. Now when I say that, is that obviously, even like what Aakaar was saying, even we have a hub and spoke model. We have another lab coming up in Gurgaon. So the thing is that you can't be dependent on those two doctors or four doctors. It should be a fixed SOP that they are following. And like the same way what Aakaar was saying, and I'm so happy to know that he's been able to, and his team has been able to add value by communicating with the clinician. But I have similar stories where I was actually drawing blood of a 40 45 48 year old lady, and she had a young daughter-in-law, and she was recently married the daughter-in-law, and they just came in for a regular checkup. And I was just chatting with them, and I was like, long time, haven't seen you, how are you? And they said, oh, we were getting home collections during COVID, but we love coming to the lab and giving the sample. So I was like, how is everything? And the daughter-in-law told me, ki, everything's fine, Doc Saab. Actually, my mother-in-law is very happy. I was like, why? What happened? She's like, actually, she's lost a lot of weight in the past 2 months. And I was like, okay. So I took more history, and then I also got a history that she had lost appetite. And then we did her entire routine wellness check where everything was normal. Her total protein was little low. And post that, I spoke to her, got her cancer markers done, and her CA 125, that's the ovarian cancer marker, was through the roof. So just that basic interaction that we have, or how we train our people to actually interact with the patient, to follow up with the patient, to be more empathetic, can obviously add so much value. Like Aakaar managed to drain that and find that ectopic pregnancy. I mean, I don't think that the very small mom and pop have that expertise, and the very large chains have that focus. So I think we are in that sweet spot with God's grace and with everybody's blessings, that we have a good mix of both. Now, also, Harbinder, I'll take this opportunity to answer one question that you had in the list, and that was, how do we manage by doctor run organizations, whereas the bigger chains obviously have people and professionals with a much higher business acumen. Now, that's something that I certainly think is our weak spot. And obviously, when I look at these MBAs and when they come in and how they look at P&Ls and Excel sheets, and so over the years, obviously, I have also developed a flair for that, although I'm a trained pathologist. But then running an organization, I think someone has to do that at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, you want your business to be very sustainable. So what we've also done in the past 3 years is that we've gotten it more professionals as well, who have more admin related skills, who can understand finances better, who can understand the market better, can help us drive innovation also in a way, so that we stay relevant and give more to the masses. So I think a good balance of both is very important. But as I say that we are in the sweet spot, we need to keep innovating and growing if we need to stay relevant, that's for sure.
So, and Dr. Aakaar, what I'm very keen to know in diagnostics, precision and quality are the two pillars that shape up the business and also
Yeah.
help in customer retention when we are talking of the business side of running a lab.
Yeah.
Uh, we have organized as well as unorganized players in this domain. In fact, if to the best of my understanding, this domain is has got more unorganized players than the organized ones. If I'm correct to make that
Yeah.
inference, right? How is the quality factor maintained, and what differentiates a quality diagnostic player from someone who is not or should not be perceived as focusing on quality? What would be that difference?
So quality diagnostics at an affordable price is the need of the hour. Accurate and timely diagnosis is the most important factor in the disease management, and patients must get themselves tested and scanned at centers with high quality and precision. For this, they must look at the accreditations that the centers have. It may be NABH for radiology, NABL for pathology, and many similar such accreditations do also exist. And first, I'll just touch upon the accreditations because it is a purely voluntary step and signifies the intent as well as the commitment of an organization. And it helps in streamlining operations as well as maintaining high quality standards. Important steps like detailed history taking, as Arjun has already explained, critical reporting as well as data management are important steps, and multiple internal and external quality controls are put up and monitored, which uh, put multiple checkpoints before releasing the reports of the patients. So accreditations are one thing which help to maintain the processes and also streamline operations. Also, the equipment and the technology that is being used has a major role to play in the diagnosis. So continuous upgradations need to be done. For example, we just recently upgraded our MRI 3 Tesla MRI scanner to a silent MRI. So we invested huge amount of funds in that, although we are not expected to generate much from it, but we want for the patient care and safety, patient has a good experience, in-house experience. So small steps like this really helps in the patient experience. And also, continuous training and upgradation of skills of the healthcare personnel that are working behind the scenes to make these critical diagnoses. We are a team of almost around 40 to 45 doctors, which includes 22 23 radiologists, which is a huge team. So continuously everybody is upgrading, attending conferences, and discussing the good points amongst ours. Whoever goes to any conference probably gets the points and have a meeting when they come back, so everybody gains out of that. So basically, accreditations, good technology, and the trained, experienced healthcare personnel that are working.
So, Dr. Dang, what is your view on the quality versus quantity? Because
Harbinder,
you handle the pathology side.
So
Where,
sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
I just differ on one of the points. Like on sorry, Arjun. Before you start, so on that point, when which you had asked in the list, that how easy or difficult it is to attract the patients as compared to an organization which is run by managers and professionals. So I feel that since Arjun has already emphasized that sustainability is the key, I feel that it is easier for us as healthcare professionals to be managing our own centers, because at the end of the day, what we want is volumes and to sustain, right? So the patients, as well as we already as experts in our respective fields, attract patients as well as from clinicians, because they feel more comfortable to sending patients, because they trust our skills, they know us, and they know the intent and the right care that their patients would get. And at the same time, we also, I feel that it is more cost effective, because rather than hiring managers in getting patients or to monitor patients, I would rather do it myself, train my own team. So I do we do a dual role. We basically do our own role as healthcare experts as well as managing the show. So I feel it's easier as compared to the other side.
So I
But
completely agree with you. The reason I said we need more MBs is so that me and you can go for more vacations also. I think that's also important.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with you on that. So Harbinder, coming back to the thing that Aakaar was also mentioning about NABL and such accreditations. Now, I know that Harbinder, you would have probably gone to many labs in the past, gotten your testing done, and you are also aware that almost every lab has this round kind of a symbol with a little ribbon at the bottom that says NABL. And now each and every lab that you see, whatever advertisement you see, it says NABL accredited. But I'm almost sure that majority of even the well-read and the well-to-do and educated population in Delhi won't know that when a lab puts a NABL logo, it can also mean that out of their entire test menu of 1,000 tests, only one test, that is hemoglobin, is accredited, and they just put that logo there. So it's very important to understand that how many tests in a particular lab are in the scope of NABL. And people usually say that, okay, this lab is NABL and this lab is also NABL. Look, they're also giving that logo. So the quality might be equal. But the question that you need to ask is that, okay, these tests that I'm getting done, are they in the NABL scope? Because that is the gap. That is why people come and say that, okay, this is much cheaper and this is also NABL, so it must be as good. But that's really not the case. And also talking about quality, I feel that word has been done and dusted and used by everyone so widely that I think it is almost forgotten that quality is actually a culture. It is the quality culture that is there in an organization. It is not that you have your documentation in place and your SOPs in place. That's also important. But like you're already aware, Harbinder, like the maximum errors that occur in any lab in the world is in the pre-analytical phase. Pre-analytical phase, for me to explain to you, means that suppose me and Aakaar are patients and they go to a lab and they take Aakaar sample, but they label it as Arjun. And they take Arjun sample and they label it as Aakaar's. So this pre-analytical step, this error that's done right there, in till the end, no matter how good your quality systems, how good your checks are, if your labeling is wrong, Arjun is going to get Aakaar's report and vice versa. So that quality culture where you have a double identification check when Aakaar is giving his sample, so that that labeling is not wrong. It's just one of the examples of the many pre-analytical errors that can occur if you've taken the sample correctly, if the band that you tie, that's called a tourniquet, if it's tied for more than 60 seconds in some tests, there's bound to be hemolysis. You're bound to get an elevated potassium level. So there are a lot of things, a lot of focus. And I think like what Aakaar was saying, that it is all about training. It's all about training. It's all about creating clones of your management, of your group of doctors, of the people who actually set up the organization. And it's not about mushrooming labs and creating volumes. It's more about adding value. Like what Aakaar was saying, to have a critical call out team. A critical call out team essentially means that, okay, if a patient tests with you and suppose their sodium is low, sodium essentially, Harvinder, is the salt in your body. And if that is low, the critical call out team will call and say, sir, your sodium value is low. Please see your doctor. But instead, what we do, we have a doctor call them up and say, Hanji, Mr. Singh, like whoever is like, okay, your sodium is low, but are you a hypertensive? Do you have blood pressure issue? They'll be like, no, no, we don't have any BP issue. Then they'll be like, okay, take a little bit of namkeen nimbu pani and your sodium will be back, and go see your doctor in the meantime. But you can't just have this as an SOP where you say that, okay, give a namkeen nimbu pani. What if the person is a hypertensive and their BP shoots up? So that's adding value again at that every point of the sample life cycle, where ultimately the patient benefits.
this brings me to a question that when we are talking of quality and the parameters that you and Aakaar have just explained, these are all people dependent, you know. So which means you need to have many such Aakaars and many such Arjuns in your institution who have the understanding, intelligence, ability to be able to replicate what you do, you know. How big is a challenge for you as an organization to be able to hire, or are these many people available?
So, Arvinder, something that I've realized in the recent past is that it is better to get freshers or people who have no knowledge and then to mold them and train them rather than get someone with a lot of experience from the past so many years and then they have to unlearn and then again learn and they come at a higher salary as well. So I think it's more important to find the people with the right attitude, because if you find them who are willing to learn, who are enthusiastic, aptitude is something that again our experts and our coaches will train them to deliver the best.
What about your thought on this, Dr.
Yeah,
Aakash?
same here. We also do prefer freshers who had trainings from reputed institutes, and because it's easier to train them according to our protocol, what we feel would serve the patients at best. And continuous trainings do happen, and we have a dedicated quality team and an HR team who continuously train them on the skill set as well as on the soft skill training, how to deal with the patients. Along with the technical training, there has to be other trainings as well, which will benefit the patients in the long run.
So,
So
Dr.
yeah, same.
Yeah, Dr. Aakaar, tell me one thing. You're in the business of radiology and imaging as well. Now, technology is advancing at a very rapid pace. It is changing like every
Mm.
6 months or a year, you have something new that comes up. And investment in infrastructure plays a very significant role in maintaining the quality. Are you using the latest, equipment, etc., technologies? How do you keep pace with companies which are having hub and spoke model, who serve a larger geographic area with that same piece of equipment versus companies like yours, which are serving a very small geographic area, but are expected to invest in similar kind of equipment?
So technology is a key component of providing good quality diagnostics, and we do continuously upgrade our existing machines as well as infrastructure. For example, if a patient has to get themselves scanned on a MRI scanner, they must prefer a high-end 3 Tesla as compared to a lower strength machine, so that maximum information is so that maximum information is gained. So we do continuously upgrade our systems, and like I had told about the silent MRI and another software that we use in the coronary angiographies. So we upgraded our system so that all the coronary arteries and the branches can be visible even in the images that the doctors get, the referring clinicians. They don't even have to read the reports, the images are so clear. So apart from that, we also do continuously upgrade in services which will eventually benefit the patients, like for example dedicated CRM, a team of call center executives, because patients have lots of queries. They want to ask each and every detail of a test before getting tested. So you need a happy to help team which is continuously in touch with the patient, solve their queries. So I also set up a dedicated digital team which improves our social media and online presence. So the eventual benefit goes to the patients, and we really do it is a part of continuous upgradation in the way we continuously upgrade our technology. Yes.
So, Arjun, what is your take on this? And I also want to ask you something which is related to this. As a lab, which is not a multi-location lab, when I'm talking about multi-location, I'm talking about pan-India kind of a lab, and you have businesses today which are collecting samples from different cities, bringing it down to another city where the testing is actually done. Now, when company like yours is expected to grow, at the end of the day, it is an institution which needs to be sustainable, right? And needs to be profitable. And we are talking about the business of diagnostics here. The only way to increase the the profitability and keeping the business sustainable, keeping it on the growth path, the two ways are either you get more quantities, right, or more samples, or you charge more, right? What is it that you as an institution is focusing on? Is there a segmentation that you have done of the industry where you say that, this is the kind of a target audience that I have and I want to focus on that? So what is your take on this?
So, Arvinder, I think one of the most relevant questions I've been asked in the recent past, and actually, I'll go back in time a little bit to answer that better if you allow me. And 2016, I finished my education in London, and I came back, and I was sitting over dinner with my parents and my entire family, and my sister also, who's a pathologist and heading all of lab operations in our lab. And I was just discussing with them that, okay, now we need to grow. I am here. And the reason I've come back from London, leaving that wonderful life and coming back to Delhi, so that I can help you grow and sculpt this model to a larger footprint. And then there were discussions about how to enter radiology, how to actually start servicing corporate, start doing greater volumes, or there was some other innovative models that we were discussing that all your hub and spoke other corporate chains do, or to have one lab open up, say in Rajasthan, one in Punjab, one in Kashmir, one in Uttarakhand, things like that. But at the end of it, all of it boiled down to the vertical that I started in 2018, and that was of R&D. And last year also, we did about 30% of our revenue with God's grace from that particular vertical. Now, that is again an answer to your question where you have this high touch, high feel, high average revenue per patient kind of B2C model that is our bread and butter and that is our USP. But at the same time, to create a larger impact, today we have with God's grace again teams in almost every state in India, and we work hand in hand with the government on multiple projects. It might be the TB testing project, or it might be us being the central lab for both Corbevax and Covaxin, which were the two made in India COVID vaccines as well. And this was something which I started in 2018, and then COVID came along. But even apart from that, we work with a lot of players in the pharma industry, a lot of regulatory studies that we are a part of, even academic and simple academic institutes from AIMS to other tertiary care centers who we do various kind of studies with. And here, where we do the pricing and the costing, etc., is paper thin margins. Because again, we are dealing with very large volumes. Like currently, I have teams in about 13 tier 2 and tier 3 cities where we have a mandate from the government to do some specific testing for the population there. And this is also in hilly areas of the Northeast where there are obviously no roads also available. So again, the thing that I wanted to do was to diversify, but with that back end synergy where the lab is obviously churning out the same quality of the report that the ultimate patient gets. So yes, diversification is definitely very important. B2C and this kind of high touch, high feel, personalized care, doctor availability is going to be our main focus. But at the same time, to have a larger impact on the nation as a citizen of this country, I feel that responsibility we should fulfill.
So, Arjun and Aakaar, my next question to you is related to what you preempted and tried to answer beforehand, which is about doctor-led labs versus professionally managed corporate labs. Now, I understand this is a quality parameter that is kept in mind when there's a qualified doctor that is managing the lab. But as and when you grow, even if you're a regional player, you can't be in every center, So what is your vision? And I want you individually, both of you to answer it, that what is your vision? Would you want these labs to be led by doctors or qualified radiologists versus getting management graduates or people with business acumen to lead these labs for you? What is your vision as you expand? Let's begin with you, Dr. Aakaar.
So, see, the competition has always been there in diagnostics. We are there since more than 3 decades. And of course, after COVID, a lot of new players have entered into the diagnostic market. Even on the red light, in which one of our main centers is located in Tilak Nagar, there are about 5 to 7 MRI scanners and similar number of CT scanners and many more such ultrasound machines. But like even today, there is a long line of patients who want their ultrasounds only from Dr. Kapoor, who's my father. And many such procedures, like in pathology, even the guided procedures, the ultrasound guided or the CT guided, they know that they will get that done from my mother, Dr. Sunita, who's also an NABA lead assessor. So this is the trust that has developed over the years. And that is a level of satisfaction which I want at the end of the day, that my patients to take my name, to come from wherever, whichever parts of the country, to get themselves tested by me. There are doctors who send patients from Sonipat, Panipat, or NCR, and they say ki sir se report karwana. Even if patients, this is just small examples which eventually that is what I've been brought up, by my parents, with this vision that, do a quality work which no one can match it. The vision is definitely to reciprocate this quality and go to the next level by opening up multiple satellite centers with this hyper local aspect, which do serve radiology, pathology, cardiology, as well as neurology, all under one roof. So patients do want to visit, centers in which all the types of investigations can be done, rather than visiting multiple places. So yeah, we do plan to increase our geographical reach as well as consolidation, as Arjun has also envisioned, like consolidating our area.
Arjun, what is your take on this?
So I agree with Aakaar on everything he said, but I also would like to add that I personally feel, and this is only my personal opinion, that a good balance of both, Harbinder, is what is required. And I'll also give you an example. And so we were doing one particular test that was a highly specialized test. Now, that highly specialized test obviously costs a lot even to perform. So that cost, we'd obviously put a margin on it and then had an MRP of how much we were giving it to the patients for. So one of these persons who I work hand in hand, we did an entire exercise where we were looking at each and every test that is performed in the lab. Now, this particular gentleman, who's not a doctor, but he's very good at Excel, basically went through it and said, Ki, Dr. Ang, there are these three tests, out of which this is one of the tests, where actually you are making a loss if you include the manpower and 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's a huge amount of loss. And then he said that if you reduce your MRP and shift this particular thing to another module, so basically they have a better know-how of how to crunch numbers. And once they give me the option that, okay, they've connected and this is another machine where you can perform the same test, then obviously assessing the sensitivity and the specificity of that particular test is up to the expert. For example, with our 10 centers in Delhi, Harbinder, there is one particular center where I didn't even know what this word meant. It's called ARPA. It's called an average revenue per accession. And he said, sir, how is your average revenue per accession for this particular center? Not even half of your other centers. How is that possible? So then he did a market study there. He came up with 5 packages that are specific to that center. And I'm seeing the ARPA grow by about 15 or 20% every quarter. And 30% of the total revenue is just by those packages. So in the larger picture, I feel that we also have that acumen, that know-how, but really, do we have that peace of mind to either be focusing on the patient or to be focusing on crunching those numbers and making the business model more viable is my question. So that's why I feel a good balance of both, and especially who's a doctor who's been in a management position, if they come with that flair and that knowledge, I think that's a complete winner.
So, do you think that the medical schools need to start imparting knowledge on practice management apart from just teaching the technical stuff?
Absolutely, Harvinder. I think soft skills, business management, and most importantly, ethics. These three are at the priority of healthcare professionals that should be ingrained in them before they actually get their degree. Because these three are very useful in your daily routine or your daily work as well.
So, Dr. Aakaar, do you think that providing a basket of personalized services is beneficial in a hyper-local domain for standalone laboratories? I mean, you've just emphasized that you are able to offer that personalized service to people. How do you think that creating that niche within the market creates an opportunity for growth in newer markets that you target? I mean, obviously, like I said, you yourself will not be present in every center that you set up now.
So basically, like we have multiple departments in our center, and every center have their own niche, have their own specialization. Like pathology and radiology is our niche. So in many times when a patient walks in with a prescription, and since they already know the staff that are there at the reception, at the customer care, they've been coming to us since years. The staff directly sometimes do get the patients to us, and the patients want to cross verify if some other tests need to be added, like, and even patients want to have a discussion regarding some of the tests. If they have undergone that test at two or three other labs, they want to just have a debate and why the value has changed and how it has varied now, why this was there. So patients feel very free and very comfortable to have this connect with the doctors available. So point number one, hyperlocal really benefits in that trust and settling the questions inside the mind of the patient. So similarly, like we have multiple centers. So if, for example, on ultrasound we find any anomaly in the fetus, in the inside a pregnant female, so when we report it, the we also see the scan at our main center as well in Tilak Nagar, where multiple team of doctors come and see that scan, so that we are more confident before giving out that diagnosis. So eventually patient benefits, and when the doctor or the patient, suppose if they plan to abort, we also do these fetal autopsies, and also like during the antenatal times we do the amniocentesis and other procedures. So this is our core niche, and like the complete workup can be done, and even placental biopsies are done, so that the patients are even aware of any other anomalies that might come up in the next pregnancy. So we can work up the patient till the end. They really do get that benefit in having that comprehensive diagnostics, in which radiology and pathology go hand in hand.
Got it. Got it. Arjun, I want to ask you this specific question that, both you and Aakaar come from a background where there's a strong credibility that both the institutions have established in their own respective areas, both geographical and the field of operation. Now, what I understand when I have been hearing both of you is that there's a huge value system that has become a part of the culture which is driving the quality. It is not that the quality technology से आ गई या आपके लोगों से आ गई. It is the promoters value systems and their focus on quality that has trickled down to every person working in this institution, right? And I also understand that both of you, coming from a next generation, are looking at expanding your businesses, whether by adding new services or by increasing your geographical reach. Now, the challenge is, how do you ensure that you are able to replicate this culture, replicate this value system across everything that you are doing now as a part of your expansion? How will you ensure that this is not this credibility that you established does not suffer?
So again, I think Harbinder, you should be a part of our management meetings because this is all that we discuss. And yes, so obviously increasing volumes gives us that kind of leverage of economies of scale. And the same thing that earlier that question you addressed to Aakaar also was that how do we compete with these bigger labs who have larger volumes and similar infrastructure than some particular machine? Obviously, that's a no-brainer. Higher the volumes, economies of scale come in, and the vendors obviously give you the costing as per that. So obviously, growing has its own benefits. But obviously, to control the quality and the personalized care as you grow from one center to 10 to 100 to 1,000 is something that's very difficult. One thing that is there that till date that we have been able to do is that whenever we have a new setup or a new lab, also, like for example, the Gurgaon lab that's going to start now, is that not a single person there is going to be a new hiring. It is only our people who worked with us for a minimum of 3 to 5 years that are going to be shifted there. And the new people will be in the main lab where we anyway have a lot of supervisors and seniors above them. So that when someone walks through those doors, they know the people there are seasoned enough to know how to handle a complaint, how to handle any kind of escalation. Actually, Arvinder, it's very easy to handle a happy patient. The issue actually becomes when a pregnant lady comes in and she gives a blood sample and then she falls on the floor and has a seizure. So we face situations like that as well, and how the staff actually handles that kind of a situation and all soft skills, calling in for emergency help, calling the doctor, doing the basic first aid and things, I think is very important, and that only comes with training and by only having your old people move to the new center rather than having a new center where you have all new people but very well trained. It's the on ground actual training when the customer care person that Aakaar was saying picks up the phone and the other person at the other end is just screaming and abusing and saying that, okay, this is the issue. I mean, how do you handle that patient? How do you escalate? More importantly, how do you resolve that complaint that comes in? And more importantly, that empathy and then finishing with the follow up. So I think that is also important. And I think the only crux is training and nothing else while expanding.
So I want to add two things to this. Firstly, that even taking the feedbacks from each and every patient is very important. You want to know what experience the patient has had, because many things are not do not come up to the senior management. Like even the staff at the ground level, they try to not let these incidents or any bad experiences, if any, the patients have had. So to get an unbiased, honest opinion and a feedback from each patient is very important. So, like before releasing reports in our setup, the patients do have to fill up a very small, simplified feedback form in which we at least know where we went wrong or what right we did, so that we can focus on those areas. And similar reports comes to us on mail every day, and each and every feedback which is not up to the mark is addressed there and then. In fact, I also speak to many of the patients if they have any feedbacks or any scope of improvement is there. Another thing that we do is that we take continuous feedbacks from our staff, which is done on a very frequent basis. So two types of feedbacks: one, what all we can do to improve as an organization, and also other thing is what all scope of services which we can add to our satellite other branch centers, which would be beneficial for the centers, because they know many of the queries that are coming up. For example, recently one of the staff, they suggested us to put an entire dental setup in one of our satellite centers. So we installed OPG and CBCT there, because many queries are coming up and a lot of dentists are there locally with local setups nearby, and the numbers started increasing from the day one. So getting these feedbacks from staff and patients both are very important in the growth of an organization.
I agree. I agree. Uh, Let me now move away from a little bit of your core areas of pathology and radiology. You both are next generation doctrineurs. You know, how is your vision any different from what your parents had while setting up the institutions that you now represent? And what do you think will be your focus areas to take the current business to the next level? Whoever wants to go first.
Should I go first, Akash?
Yeah, Arjun, go ahead.
Sure, sure. So, Harbinder, essentially, again, looking at the business and touchwood, looking at the family, God has been very kind, and we are not competing with any of the larger chains. But obviously, I think mine and Akar's uh, entire kind of life would be that if we had a small X, we have to grow it to a big X. Otherwise, I don't think that satisfaction will be there. But obviously, we are not here in a rat race where everything is about building volumes and about increasing top line and things like that. It is also that we want to do the correct thing and then go back to our families in the evening and have a good night's sleep. I think that is also important, and that happens if you are doing the best work that you can with a pinpoint focus on the patient. Now also during COVID, this is something that I have discussed before, but it's a really good example of how I think all labs that were actually focusing a lot on quality would have actually just given a pass to God knows how many lakhs and crores. Because like what we did in our lab was that collecting COVID samples at that point of time was obviously extremely simple. We started the drive-through also. We had multiple of these home collection services. I could easily hold up to 5,000 samples in a day, but we never really collected more than 1,000 samples in a day because our thumb rule was that no report should go later than 24 hours and 1 minute. So if you are reporting a COVID sample in 48 hours, it's no use to the patient. Their half their infection is already shed and they've probably given it to 10 others. So to have that sense where only doing what you can deliver to the best was something that we started in COVID, and also moving forward, we would want to do that. Dang's Lab, with God's grace, would be in a few states in North India in the next few years. And we have a plan to expand our footprint to other geographies as well, especially the Hindi speaking belt as well. But obviously, not doing that in any hurry, not doing that by cutting corners, not taking shortcuts, doing slowly, steadily, but surely the best that anyone can.
Dr. Aakaar.
So the vision is firstly to do the same things that have been done correctly to maintain the trust of the patients and to do the right things and maintain that ethos and the values that the organization has maintained over the years. I also, unlike some a way in which I differ from my father is that I do want to, balance my time apart from radiology into management and even in business development. And I also want to spend time understanding the requirements of the patients, the needs of the patients in order to serve the society on a better note. And that would help my organization in a larger way. And yeah, apart from that, the same that expanding and opening centers is not the only thing up our mind. It's like, doing the right thing in the right way. That is the first and the foremost important fact for us. That's how we have been brought up and things have been drained. And that's what is for me and the entire team.
Got it. Got it. So the fact that you want to do what your parents have done, but you also want to take up a role towards business development and growing your business is exactly the reason why I called you both docpreneurs. My last question to both of you before I let you go is, what is it that we're expecting in the diagnostic space in the coming year? We are at the year end. So what is it that in terms of investments, technology advancements, both in terms of the medical equipment or things like genomics, impact on outcomes, financial growth, what is it that we can expect from the diagnostics industry in the coming year?
So since many players have entered the diagnostic market, especially after COVID, we do expect a rate game or a war of price and the rates of the test to go down for sure. But at the same time, there is increased awareness amongst people to get themselves tested and scanned at centers with high quality and precision. people really care about their health and want the best uh, at at any cost. They do have they want to go ahead with the trust that they have. So the rates of the test might go down. Also, I feel that there is an increasing role of artificial intelligence and analytics, which might also reduce the costs of the investigation while maintaining the quality. And also, I feel that good quality diagnostics is no longer the prerogative to urban population, and a lot of investigation and even treatment would reach the tier 2 and tier 3 cities through home collection facilities as well as the telemedicine services that are available online. So it is a win-win situation for everybody, and affordable healthcare would be accessible to a large chunk of population in the near future.
So Arjun, you got bumped off, but the
Yes.
question that I'd asked was that, what is it? We are at the back end of the year. So we're all looking at the new year beginning midnight tonight. What is it that we can expect in the diagnostic space, both in terms of investments, technology advancements, impact on outcomes, financial growth, etc.? What is it that we expect from diagnostics industry?
So, Arvinder, very interesting question, and I think I'm actually quite certain that this year that is going to 2023 that's just going to start is going to be all about sustaining. Now, the kind of growth that COVID gave the industry, and with the huge volumes and the kind of labs that we've seen mushrooming, even the investment that has been pumped into the diagnostics market, even so many of these new pan India chains also that have come up, and even these airport testing labs that were there, that's a different conversation altogether. But all of these labs now have obviously pumped in a lot to make those setups. And how do we actually sustain these? By actually either building volumes or creating or carving out your own niche, again, is something that's very important. Even the larger players, even the publicly listed few companies that we have, are going to look at more at the non-COVID growth compared to the COVID growth, because because the growth from COVID or the finances from COVID are obviously going to become very less, unless I hope not, but if there's another surge, then that's a different story. But everyone needs to sustain the non-COVID business. And everyone, I think, also hired a lot of manpower during the pandemic. Now, obviously, the top line it's going to be a struggle to make it grow with the same kind of growth. So then how do you actually optimize your manpower and your expenses so that your EBITDA margins are not suffering, so that you can still have that kind of a system that's going? So I think small or big or large, I think everyone is going to look at sustaining the growth that they've had, and then slowly and steadily go back to the growth that was there in the pre-COVID times as well.
I totally agree with you. I mean, when you look at the business aspect of sustaining the institution, you have to look at beyond the spikes that come in, which are event based and situation based. Uh,
Yeah.
you know what, Arjun and Aakaar, this has been such a beautiful conversation. This has been on my mind for a very, very long time, that we must understand how does one lab, which is a regional lab, very successfully competes with the pan India players and the hub and spoke model. I think today's conversation has, like Arjun, you know what, you and me were talking before we started our session, that we need to differentiate, right? What are the takeaways? So I'll share with you what are the takeaways from the conversation with you and Aakaar. One is, it's absolutely clear that we need to focus on our strengths as a regional lab as against a pan India lab, and make ourselves better in what our strengths are, rather than trying to offer anything and everything under the sun. Second is, what has very clearly emerged out of conversation with you and Aakaar is that, do the right thing. Do not compromise on the value systems on which you have built a brand, which is, creating a sense of credibility in the minds and the hearts of your users. And what I've also understood is that there has to be very high patient focus, and the outcomes that you're creating. And you guys have both shared examples of when you have gone beyond the call of the duty, beyond what was expected. You both shared the examples of a patient coming in for something, but you were able to add value because you were qualified to do so. And that is the value that you brought to the table. And differentiate and add value than trying to compete with anyone else, because the only way to become better is when you compete with yourself. With that, I want to thank both of you for taking our time to be on a conversation with us at BW Healthcare World. Thank you so much for being there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Harbinder.
Thank you, Harbinder ji.